Welcome to LiveDaf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem and welcome back to today's Daf Hayomi Menachos Daf Chaf Beis. We begin 3 lines off the top of the Amud. Says the Gemara ve'etzim de pshita le'letana de mishal tzibur menalan. So yesterday we concluded that in terms of firewood required for a korban, that's publicly supplied. You don't come lugging your own wood to the Beis Hamikdash with your korban. The question is, how do we know that to be so? How do we know that every individual's korban will partake in the public etzim firewood supply for akrava? The Sani, we have a brisa. So perhaps when a person donates an oila, he undertakes to bring an oila, he has to bring his firewood with him. He has to bring his own firewood from his home, just as he brings in the wine and the oil. The answer is no. Pasuk says you bring an oil and you put it on the eitzim, ashar ala eish, ashar ala mizbech, which is on the eish and the mizbech. The pasuk here is connecting the eitzim to the mizbech. Ma mizbech mishal tzibur, just as the mizbech is publicly supplied. Av eitzim, you don't bring your own mizbech. Av eitzim, likewise, the eitzim ve'esh and the fire itself, mishal tzibur, is publicly supplied. Dibir Blazer, Bar Shimon. I have a different source. I have a different application for this pasuk. It says like this: Ma mizbeach shelin. The point of the pasuk is to compare the eitzim and to the mizbeach. That's coming for a different point. To tell you that the wood has to be fresh wood, never before used wood. You can't use used wood for the karbanis. Ma mizbeach, just like the mizbeach was never used by a private person. It was fresh stones used for the mizbeach. Af eitzim ve'esh, likewise the firewood and the fire itself needs to be only shalin nishtamish ben hedi, never before used by a private person. My benai, what's the difference between these two shitas? Whether you can use used wood, you can benayu chadati. The question is, whether you need fresh new wood. So according to the first shita, it isn't necessarily required. According to the second shita, it is required. Now the Farshim point out that it's clear from the Gemara that even according to the second opinion, it's no machlekes regarding who supplies it. He also agrees, the second shita also agrees that it has to be publicly supplied from, perhaps it's a different source. But it's just pointing out that this pasuk is teaching that it has to be fresh new wood. Ask the Gemara, really, you can't use used wood? Vatiki, loy? Wood that was previously used cannot be used for the korban. Pasuk in Shmuel, the famous offer by Aravna, when he offered the karbanos to David HaMelech, Vayema Aravna al David Yikach v'al Adoini HaMelech. Look, please take what you please. Hatay be'ein of anything you want. Reya bakal oila. You could take the cattle for the oil of Amerigim, and the Amerigim, which is a farming piece of equipment. Use it as firewood. So clearly used equipment for firewood. Who says it was used? Maybe it was brand new. Let's assume it was brand new, never before used equipment, which it took apart, which it used for firewood. Now, what exactly is this piece of equipment? What does that mean? My mita shel tarbel. Amar Yuda is this block of wood, the kurkasa, which has these pegs and these holes, used to to thresh the straw, turn into hay. It's used to thresh the hay. Amar B'yesem Ma'ikra. How do we know it's for that purpose? This is the pasuk speaking about the goyim being punished and being put through this type of experience, threshed with this type of device. Hine samtich l'moirak. Moirak is like moirigim. Chorotz is this thing that has the crevices. Chadash v'apipfio is tadash harim. It's gonna do what it needs to do to the goyim. Okay, now what happens if there's a mix-up between Menachos? Says the Mishnah. Nis'arev kaimtza becomes chaverta. So you have a regular mincha, standard mincha b'Yisrael, flour, oil, right? And there was a kmitza taken from it, and that kaimtza dropped back into some sort of mincha that was sitting nearby. It becomes chaverta in the mincha next door. Or Minchas Kayanim, a Mincha B'Kayin. Minchas Kayin Mashiach, Minchas Nesachim. So all these cases, Kshera, they're okay. Because the kaimas that fill in will now be put on the Mizbeach. Despite the fact that it's mixed in with another mincha, but the thing is that the second mincha doesn't need kmitza. A mincha v'kayin, etc. don't need kmitza. So just take the whole bowl, put it on the Mizbeach, and you're good. Rabbi Da'imar, hold it. Rabbi Da'imar says, no, it's not so simple. Because the proportions, the oil proportions are different. Per mincha, you'll have transfer between menachos. That's a problem. So if your kmitza drops into the minchas koyin, Mashiach, minchas nesachim, everything's possible. Psula. Why? Because you see in a standard, regular mincha, you take just one lug, let's call it 1 liter of oil, mixing it into a isaron of silas. So it's sort of a more dry type of consistency. Whereas the other menachas that you've just described have much more oil. 3 lug per isaron, much more oily mincha. So now there's going to be transfer because it equalizes. When this sort of dry portion falls into that very moist mincha, there's going to be equalization. There's going to be oil mixing around, moving around from the perimeters into the center, into the kmitza that fill in, which is dry, which is going to absorb some of that oil. So now you have 2 problems on your hand. The kmitza, which is meant to have less oil, now absorbed too much oil, too much than required, and the surrounding area not lost its oil. It's as if it's missing oil. So you're cut on both sides. You're short on both ends. Shazub lilasa ava, because the kaimetz of the regular mincha has a thicker consistency, less oil. V'zub lilasa raka, whereas the other ones are more liquidy consistency. Vein boila izumazu, and they absorb from each other. So the oil of these surroundings will now permeate to the middle one, to the kmitza, and that oil will be bottled in the more dry kmitza. So now the surrounding material is missing, is lacking some of its oil. And likewise, the kaim is now imported extra oil, more than he needs. Okay, that takes us into a discussion regarding bittul. In the tarevis of min b'mina, you realize here we have oil and oil, so it's like min b'mina. We'll see. Tonight also we have a discussion back in Maseches Zvachim, if you recall. Dam shin sar b'mayim, you have blood of a carbon, which is meant for zrika, but it got mixed with water. Can it still be used for zrika or not? Depends how much water it is. It depends if the blood is considered nullified in the mix. Im yesh by maris dam, if you can still see the blood within it, it still appears like blood, it's still reddish, kosher, you can still use it for zrika, nis'arev b'yayim. But now let's say it gets mixed into red wine. Since they both have the same color, it's indiscernible. We envision, we imagine as though the red wine is really water. And we sort of calculate, theoretically, if this amount of blood would have mixed into this amount of water, would the redness of the blood still be discernible? Then it's okay. Likewise, if it got mixed into other bloods, which share the same color, same method is used. So we view that blood as though it's water. And if it would be water, would the kachim blood still be visible? Then you're good. Rabbi Da'imar, ein dam batal dam. He says no issue when it's blood on blood. It's called min b'mina, the same type of materials. There's no opposition. There's no challenge. There's no bittul. Nullification comes from a challenge. No challenge. But they're both the same type of materials. And therefore, even if a little bit of dam kachim gets mixed into a huge amount of other dam, there's no bittul. But according to Rabbanon, even when it's min b'mina, it's batal. What's this machlokes based on? Rav Yochanan. Rav Yochanan, shnei mikrei chadasha, they're both based on the same pasuk. From Yom Kippur, we know that the pasuk instructs them to mix together the huge amount of blood of the cow, with the par, with the small amount of blood of the goat, and use them both together in a mixed form. What happened to bittul? And we all know the huge amount of the cow blood certainly overrides a small amount of soyer blood. So how can you mix them together and use them both in a mix? Apparently there's no bittul, but the question is why? Certainly there's no bittul, that's established. What's the reason? There are 2 ways to learn. Rabbanan say It's because karba materials don't cancel each other out. Oilin are not mevatel each other, period. That's the reason. Not because it's min or mina. Rabbi takes a different. Rabbi says it's because min or mina. So we know the halacha. The question is, what is it attributed to? Rabbanan say, we learn from here the fact that this blood does not cancel out the other one. We learn la'oilin, material which is slated for the mizbeach. They retain their uniqueness. They retain their footing, their identity, and they don't become nullified. She'ein mevatel zezeh. Rabbi takes a different approach. He says, we learn from here that anywhere, even if it's not carbon material, if it's the same type that got mixed in with it, lemin b'minay she'ein batel. And the word elaborates. Rabbanan Sabra, they hold, we learn from here, la'oilin she'ein batel zezeh. How do you know that's the reason? Maybe it's because of the mina issue. Maybe that's the reason. How do you know what to attribute the halacha to? The answer is like this. If the pasuk will speak about a min b'minay mix, which is not carbon material, then you're right, you have a point. I would have no choice but to attribute the reason to that. But now the Ashmin oil that the pasuk speaks specifically about carbon materials, that is the reason. Mission to oilin. Well, so maybe you need both conditions to prevent the bittul from taking place. You need a oilin, number two min b'minay, viduma oilin, viduma adik min b'minay v'oilin. Kashi. In fact, that's a good question that we're not answering. Conversely, Rita takes the other approach. We learn from here the fact that two bloods don't cancel each other out because it's min b'minay. Well, who says? Maybe it's because it's oilin, like the Rabbanan. Who? Well, the answer is if the pasuk speaks about oilin, carbon materials which are unlike each other, min b'shein minay, then you would have a point. Because the Amris, I'll be forced, I'll be compelled to attribute the reason to the oilin. But now the pasuk speaks specifically about two of the same types, then that is the reason. Well, says the one who says maybe you need both conditions present to preempt the bittul. You need the same types, and also kashi, we'll leave it unresolved. Now comes the question on the Mishnah. So by extension, since there's a let's see how it applies to the Mishnah. This says, so if the kmitza of the drier mincha dropped into the more moist mincha, the more oily mincha, you have a problem on your hands. Why? He explains. Because the kmitza is coming from a thicker direction. Whereas the menachos that it fell into, that dropped into, are saturated with oil. They transfer, they absorb from each other. What's the problem? It's min b'minay, it's oil and oil. What are you concerned about? The extra oil from the oil of mincha has now permeated, has now penetrated and been absorbed and imported into the kmitza and been bottled to the kmitza. Now it gets sort of incorporated and becomes part of the kmitza. So now the kmitza has too much oil and you've lost some oil from the other mincha. Who cares if they absorb from each other? It's oil and oil. So basically the oil that the kmitza now imported doesn't become part of itself, doesn't become bottled in the kmitza. Right, the little bit of oil that came in, that doesn't become nullified and incorporated into the kmitza, because the greater amount of oil that's sitting in the kmitza, which will now be mevatel, this little bit of oil that came in from the outside, is mivamina, it's not bottled. So this imported oil still relates to the external material. It's still outside, so to speak. It's not bottled to the kmitza, so there's no transfer at all. Amar, Rava, hold it. Let's keep in mind that the kaimitz material has two things within it. It's comprised of oil. You're right, that oil can't make trouble. That can't be mevatel, the imported oil, and sort of incorporate it into itself. But the flour part of it could, because the flour is not the same min as oil. So now, again, let's picture it. You have a mincha which is less oily. You took the kmitza out, and you by mistake dropped it into the oily mincha. So the kaimitz now sunk into that oily mincha. So the flour portion of that kaimitz, which is a different min than the oil surrounding it, will now import. Right, that's what happened. It equalizes, right? This transfer of moisture from the more moist to the drier area. So that flour, so to speak, the flour of the kaimitz will not import, will suck in some of that surrounding oil, which will now become bottle in the flour, because min b'shein amina, different types, which according to all shittas is bottle. So now you landed too much oil in that kaimet and too little in the surrounding area. Because Rabbi Yehuda holds, kol shemin v'mina, when you have a mix between min and mina, like oil and oil, but then you have another material as well, such as the flour in the kaimets, which will now interact with the imported oil. Ignore the parallel type, the oil within the kaimets, move it aside to get it out of the equation. And the type which is different than the imported oil, i.e. the flour within that kaimetz, overrides and overwhelms the little bit of the imported oil in the kmitza. It's mavatlit, which basically makes it part of itself. It incorporates it into itself. It detaches it. It disengages it from the surrounding mincha. It becomes part of the kaimetz. So now we've left with a kaimetz which too much oil, and a mincha which lost its required oil. So that's the problem. But that's only according to Rabbi Yehuda. According to Chacham, there's no issue, because oilin are not mavatli each other. And we have oilin here. We have the kaimetz. We have the mincha. Oilin not mavatli each other. So wherever this oil is, even if it moved around and landed inside the kmitza within its mix, doesn't matter. It's still connected to its previous, a mincha, which hasn't lost that oil, because it's still there. It's not becoming part of the kaimetz. The kaimetz is not going to be mavatlit and take it in. So it still relates to the surrounding material. So each mincha still has its proper ratio, proper makeup. A flour vis-a-vis oil, and it's kasha. Okay, in a nutshell, we learned that eitzim is always publicly supplied based on the pasuk. We discussed using new firewood as opposed to pre-used. Discussed the mix between the kaimetz and other menachos, which according to Rabbi Yehuda is a problem because it becomes min misheni mina and it's bottled, and now you have a transfer of oil from the surroundings to the kaimetz. Kaimetz has too much, the surrounding has too little. Machlokes is regarding min b'mina. According to Rabbi Yehuda, there's no bittul. According to the Rabbanan, there is bittul. It's only because it's oilin not about each other, and they're both based on the same halacha on Yom Kippur, where they mix the two bloods. Clearly, there's no bittul. The question is why? According to Rabbi Yehuda, because min b'mina is not batal. According to Rabbanan, it's because oilin and not mabatal zeh. All the best to you, not tzlachara.